Hey, what's up, guys? This is Storytelling Thursday. I am Team Hard Life Captain Alberto Zertuche, and what I'm doing, if y'all just subscribe to our channel, is every Thursday I'm telling stories of the things that we have done in our fishing history. Whether it's true or false is what we're clearing the air about. A lot of stories about us, and a lot of times it comes back to us, and I was like, no, that's not how it happened. This is what we caught. And you know, sometimes the story gets told where our fish is bigger than what we caught, and you know, I clarify the air and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's when I'm out there fishing on the pier. Y'all haven't had a chance to fish with me yet, so we haven't had, you know, the little fishing stories be told on the pier, or on the beach. Here's where we're putting them out there for you. Today, I'm actually talking about one of the times I actually had a rigging needle nearly take me out of a tournament. Yes, a rigging needle. So, on this story, I'm fishing with my buddy Ricky Marks and his son and his brother, and we're fishing the Sharkathon tournament, which is the largest land-based shark fishing tournament here in Texas. There's other tournaments that are up and coming and growing, which is great. You know, the community is coming together to promote healthy shark fishing habits and so forth. Well, this time we had already checked in, we were down beach, and we started rigging our baits. Well, literally, I pulled out the baits I was going to rig up and got my rigging needle set up, got my drops, my rods, lines, and everything else. So, as I pushed through the first bait, I want to say it was either a cownose or a bonita, one of the two. All right, so as I was rigging my bait, I pushed the rigging needle through, and somehow, when I was pulling, I guess I was leaned over this way, I pulled it hard enough to where it pulled all the way through, because I mean, you get into that motion, you start pulling real quick. So I pulled it out. Well, as it came out, the loop on the end of the rigging needle and the drop, it popped off and it hit me like that. So I look down and I see just a little hole. Well, the next thing I know, I see blood start to squirt out. And I'm talking, like I said, it went up about this high and just like this, just started squirting out of the top end of my foot. So, you know, I covered up real quick to put pressure on it. Being in the military ourselves, we've dealt with a lot of issues where, you know, people hurt themselves or, you know, you see all kinds of accidents. So blood wasn't nothing new to me, and or seeing myself cut open wasn't nothing new. So I sat there and I, you know, like called to my buddy Rick. I said, hey, boss, I said, we got a little bit of a problem here. And he's like, what happened? And as soon as I pulled my foot, my hand off like that, it shot blood again, and then it balled up like this, so I put pressure on it. Well, at that point, he came over and he started talking to me. He goes, you don't look so well. And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know what the hell's going on. I said, I feel weak. And he goes, you gonna pass out and shit? I go, okay, maybe I am, you know. And so he goes, dude, you need to sit back. And so they pulled up a chair and I sat back, and man, it was the one time. I mean, I've gotten cuts all over, you know, deep cuts to where I'm sitting there, I'm moving my arm around. That'll be another scar to talk about. But I was sitting there and I'm looking at, you know, my insides through this cut and stuff like that. So it never really fazed me, but this one was different. I don't know why it was different, but what I later realized was that main vein that comes across the top of my foot, I had actually split it in half. And that was what was gushing all the blood out. And, you know, I saw on the floor, you know, it made a nice squirt pattern and so forth. So I sat back, and my buddy Ricky and his son and his brother, you know, they started icing it down and keeping pressure on it, you know, to stop the bleeding and so forth. So after a while, you know, he'd pull his hand off and we'd sit there and we'd monitor it to see if it was growing anymore, if it was still squirting blood. Because, I mean, even though you get the blood to stop on the surface, doesn't mean that it doesn't stop underneath the wound. You know, you could be bleeding internally. But since that area of the skin was real shallow, kind of like the backside of your hand, we could see what was going on inside. So after a while of him icing it down and stuff like that, we noticed that there was a puddle of blood sitting in there, but it wasn't growing anymore. So, you know, maybe an hour or so after that happened, you know, sitting there monitoring and stuff like that, I felt that, you know, yeah, I'm fine. You know, it's squirting out any more blood, and then that blood puddle that was on the top of my foot wasn't growing anymore. So I said, you know what? I said, let's stick it out. You know, we're 40-something, 50-something miles down beach at the time. It would be hours before we could make it back to land. I mean, the only other thing would be to call for some help if it was that bad. So I said, you know what, let's keep fishing. You know, it's during tournament. We've made it this far. I'm not going to turn back now. So we end up fishing the tournament. I end up catching a shark to place within the tournament. And that's a whole nother story. So that was one of the rare, actually that is the only incident that I can ever remember where I almost fainted. And it was crazy because, you know, I got a little dizzy and stuff like that. And it's weird because, like I said, I've cut myself open, you know, hundreds of times. I've seen a lot of blood come from me, from different instances and stuff like that. You know, the gaff is one of them. That'll be another story I can tell. So, blood ain't nothing new, but this wound was different. And why it did that, I have no idea. So if there's any doctors or nurses out there, or, you know, even medics, you know, that can chime in and let me know why that would happen to me, would be pretty cool to know, because to this day I still don't know, you know. But I did fish. I did catch a winning shark, or caught a shark that would have placed, put it that way. Yeah, that's another story. So just, and that actually is the incident that caused us to change the way we developed our rigging needles for rigging for shark. Now, what it is the knife edge that cuts through the meat sits on one side. Well, what we were doing was the loop was on the same side. We figured by doing it that way, it would, you know, when we push through the bait, we can catch it and it would be easier to come out. What we didn't realize is that if it ever pops off and that knife edge is facing down and it catches somebody in their foot like it did me, it'll cut them right open. And so what we did was we put the notch on the other side. So we got the knife edge on this side of your rigging needle, and we put the notch on the other side. And because we did that, when you're pulling through, your hand is forced to turn, which actually rotates the end, which is a good thing because it pushes the cable down. But if it were to come out on the other side and pop off, the knife edge is facing up instead of down, so that way all you receive is maybe a little puncture versus an actual cut mark of the blade that we put on the very end of the rigging needle. And what I'll do is I'm going to show you what it looks like now. I don't have any more of what it looked like then, but I can describe it to you. And it's because of my foot that we actually changed up the way we set up our rigging needles. And actually, that will lead me up to my next story on Storytelling Thursday. Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, like I said, you know, it's a hard life, and we learn from it. It's a good thing.